everyone can see equally.
And then I was thinking the other day, what if Bill Medley, one of the Righteous Brothers, was your friend, and you didn't want to tell him about anything exciting or ask him any questions about anything he's done because it's always the same answer. Hey, Bill, how was the ball game? Well, I had the time of my life.
And I never felt this way before.
Did you see the Perseid's meteor shower?
We're live.
We were
Woohoo!
live before. You were singing live.
I was singing live, and I
You
put
were
the
singing
wrong.
lively.
I put the totally wrong, incorrect number that we're doing.
You know what? That would mean it's the right one because totally wrong flips around incorrect. We were live before. I heard a really cool dude just then. I heard his voice. He was really quick.
Did you?
Yeah,
Wow.
sounded a lot like. So I woke up. Oh, this is a good story. I woke up this morning, which is always, thank you, Jesus.
Hallelujah, praise the Lord.
Yeah, where'd you go? How come I don't see you anymore? I don't want to talk about this.
On?
Where are you?
My camera's being stupid. Give me 2 seconds.
All right, then. I'm here supporting you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I stopped my camera. See how this works, everybody? Amanda's having a problem with her camera, so I got down in the hole with her instead of trying to hand her a sandwich, didn't I?
You did, and I'm proud of you.
Now, it doesn't help anything.
And we're back.
Yay.
It was just my I see this is what happens when I try to like cheap out on things. Is when I don't spend the appropriate amount of money for something, it doesn't work appropriately. I should know this.
You should, but good for you for learning at 29 because it took me longer than that to learn. That's why I buy Bounty select size paper towels because they don't fall apart on me. They cost more. Be cool if you could do that with relationships.
Right.
This model, yeah. Like you could buy expansion packs, like an honesty rating. You've seen Interstellar, right?
Yes.
Matthew McConaughey. So he has a couple of AI robots that live on the spaceship with him, and they, they're LLMs, and so they communicate like you're talking to the Chat GPT, and they have settings for honesty and humor, and I think that's kind of interesting. So I was going somewhere with that. I don't know. Oh, so the honesty setting, like I don't want 100% honesty setting on some people, but I need it on some people, and not for 100% of situations. But there are times when I need it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I jumped way ahead, but I'm pretty happy with myself for figuring out how we're going to get there later. So let's jump back to now. Hi.
How's your week been?
Fucking terrible.
Why? What's been going on?
Oh my God. It culminated with, hello, stupid. That's Harley. It culminated with me showing up for therapy yesterday. I didn't go last week because last week was a fucking terrible week. And so I got to therapy at noon and they're like, he's not here. And I'm like, well, I could get really angry and leave here, or I could just leave here because whatever I do is not going to get him here. So it'd been one of those situations where he had something come up with his family and it was an emergency, and he emailed me and they called me and I didn't pay attention. But it was, wasn't until yesterday that they did. But so it's 2 weeks in a row that I haven't had it. We didn't do this last week, and it's just shit went off the rails, man. It's been terrible.
I'm really sorry.
And so that was not a good thing. Yeah, not a good thing yesterday. I had where that noon kind of culmination of finding out that I was indeed not having therapy and that I had to get home was like after 40 hours of kind of getting ready for therapy, like not sleep. I didn't sleep at all. And so I was like, got to be like 4 a.m. on yesterday. And I'm like, fuck, man, I go one of two ways I can go. If I take Seroquel, I'm going to not wake up. If I stay up, that's my best shot. So I'd stayed up and waited to get to therapy. And then I
Oh
was like,
God, that's a gut
fuck all
punch.
y'all. Yeah. So it was not a good thing. Oh, and then what I was gonna tell the story was so I woke up this morning on my couch, which is where I sleep, I was on the phone with my friend Melissa. And I don't remember how I got on the phone. I must have answered it. It was like on the couch beside me, and she was on the speakerphone, and I could hear her, but it sounded like she was coming from the kitchen, which is behind me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really interesting because I was just waking up, and it turned out she was standing in my kitchen talking to me on the phone. And so I was hearing it twice. I was hearing
That
it in the
is
kitchen.
so funny.
Yeah.
She's trying to fuck with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was going in. That's how that started. Oh my gosh. So the reason I wasn't here last week, I started taking, we talked about this. If we didn't tell this is the mental health one, right? Where I get to talk about myself.
Yeah,
I
of
started
course it
taking,
is. Go
started
ahead.
taking, I started taking Wellbutrin. Right. I told you guys this like a month and a half ago.
You told me
Because,
this.
okay. I
I
think
don't
I
know if
talked
you've
about
told
it.
the audience this,
Well,
but the audience
now
is
they've
now,
heard.
yeah,
Yeah.
now they're
So,
getting
I mean,
into the lore.
yeah. As of today is August 16th. 2 days ago was August 14th. August 14th of last year started the worst year I've ever had in my life. It was when I took my friend Ashley to the hospital at God Jesus 30 in the morning for surgery, and we took all our stuff and we took our toys because we were going to have surgery, and then we were going to play for a couple of days in the hospital. It was going to be fun, and the shit went off the rails and everything's horrible, and she died. Not from that. Spoiler alert: 2 stories. Um, and so I started taking Wellbutrin, which is antidepressant. After I saw my doctor a couple months ago, and she's like, "Well, have you thought about taking an antidepressant?" And I said, "Well, no. Why would I? Because this is what I do for a living. I'm going to kill everyone around me for not telling me to get on an antidepressant." So I started taking Wellbutrin, and she said, which is something my doctor Tracy Scale said to me one time: "Hey, you got to be careful because you take a whole shit ton of Adderall, and if we give you something that's an antidepressant, it may send you into a manic kind of a phase. So be careful." I'm like, okay, whatever. So I started taking Wellbutrin, and I this is one thing I hate about mental health is there's so many variables that can be impacting my behavior or my feelings. Um, I started taking Wellbutrin. I'm taking my Adderall, and in the month of July, I walked 1,000,000 steps in the month of July. That's a
That
shit ton of.
is so much.
It'll blow your mind, y'all. I did a whole week of marathons in a row, and during one stretch of 40 hours, I walked like shit. I don't know, 50 miles. It was crazy. And after a week of this, I was like, this is not normal behavior, even for me. There are things going on in my life that would absolutely be okay to say there were catalysts leading to a manic episode. No problem with that. But the Occam's razor thing, and me starting to take Wellbutrin right when this started happening, I had to stop taking that.
Yeah, because Wellbutrin is of the category of antidepressants that is an NDRI, where most antidepressants are SSRIs. So it works on the norepinephrine dopamine reuptake inhibitors, whereas SSRIs is serotonin.
And I appreciate you telling me that. And you and I did talk about this on our own in your office. I forgot about that, but I think I mentioned this on the podcast too.
Mhm.
So I wish, Amanda, that I could say, wow, check one for science. I was told that this may happen, and it happened. I had a manic episode when I started this, but I also had terrible life events happen right then, and then therapy not show up. And it's just like, I get why maybe I did, all this with my, mental, with my kind of healthy mind. But I'm going to find out. So I stopped taking the Wellbutrin. I didn't walk for, or I didn't go anywhere. This is how this ended up. I did that for a week, and then I was like, I gotta not do this, and crashed. And so from like last Wednesday until Sunday, I was just in a cave that was completely dark. I don't think I got off my couch on 2 of those days. I didn't
Wow.
walk a total of 3,000 steps in those days. And then Sunday, I woke up and I felt the same shitty. But I don't know, 11 o'clock in the morning, I got up and I walked outside and I almost made it halfway down the block and I had to turn around. But that changed everything, literally. And I stayed up and I cleaned my house and then I was started thinking, what the hell happened the last 5 days of my life? I don't know. It had to be, in my mind, had to be pharmacological to some degree because I've never shut down for 4 days like that.
Yeah.
So I think it was my body saying, holy shit, dude, what the hell have we been doing for 3 weeks?
Yeah.
We
And
gotta
also like
stop.
when you run your body through the gauntlet like that, like physically, you're gonna have a crash, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that it would get rid of the Wellbutrin crash. And then is there any I understand there's validity to the fact that some medications can inhibit the reuptake of some chemicals. But is there any validity to that mattering one fucking bit to anybody's mental health?
Well, I think that's a question for somebody who is much more
In your
um
opinion, everything we talk about is opinions.
right. So, in my opinion, um the medical model that we're seeing does not necessarily support the mental health model and the science that exists, right? Like we are seeing that the whole narrative of there's a chemical imbalance in your brain is inaccurate and has been utilized and weaponized to sell pharmacological medication. Not to say that medication does not work. It does work, and it is extremely beneficial and super helpful for a lot of people. But I think the category of drug is not necessarily as important as what the drug can do for you, right? So like antidepressant, anti-anxiety, yada yada yada. I think there is something to be said about the way that works in your brain and what your brain is lacking because of A, B, and C, right? I think that those things all matter. Um, but I think, mood stabilizers, right, can be used for other things. Anti-seizure medications are used as mood stabilizers,
Yeah,
right?
there's a
There
lot of
are,
off-label use for mental health stuff.
yeah, there's propranolol, which is a beta blocker, is really good for the fear response, right? Like you can use benzos for ADHD sometimes. Like there's just a whole plethora of, we shouldn't box ourselves in. It's all about
Yeah,
symptom management.
me too. Same.
That's how I feel.
Yep. Yeah, me too. You know what? I think we mentioned this. This is a fact. The What's that one where you're not really getting medicine, but you think you are? Placebo
Placebo
effect.
effect.
The placebo effect is actually on the increase worldwide and has been ever since we identified it. I mean, it's not like jumping, hugely, but it is. It's increasing every year, and that's pretty freaking cool. And I think we're gonna find out that it keeps going up until we get to the point where we're like, wait a minute, this it is increasing, but it doesn't make sense. And it's because we're learning how to heal ourselves with our brains. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Because I think, at least for me, I think my mental health and physical health, which are completely interlocked. I mean, you can't fucking, it's like being in a relationship with someone for 65 years. You'll never unsort the two of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, uh, are a whole lot more responsive to the soft sciences. Um, I mean, it's therapy and thinking and talking, and learning how to express things that I couldn't
Yeah.
express before.
I
And
will say too that, therapy is good and well, but there's only so much therapy that you can do if you have like a genetic mental health component. Unfortunately, there is
oh, and
there needs to be
and
medical intervention for sure.
and you know what? I could at
I just
least for
want a
me,
disclaimer.
I get it, and at least for me, I could never say that I'll feel this way tomorrow. I may
Right.
not. This is what it has done for me till this point, and unfortunately, I can't say that I'm not going to have a relapse or whatever. I just, on the mental health side, when I say mental health side, I'm talking about addiction would be the other side of recovery that we try to help with, and on the addiction side, it's really easy for a lot of people to identify. Hey, here's the point. On the mental health side, it's hard because I may do everything the same way I've done it for years and years and wake up one day and be fucked because of my, like you said, the genetics or whatever's going on with my mental illness.
Yeah.
And so
There's also,
that's why symptom management is the most important thing to me because I don't expect to be cured.
yeah. And I think too, like, there is a lot to say about, well, I mean, like you said, that's what I'm trying to like, where did this thought come from, a train of thought, and why did I think it? When you
Mhm.
had said, you may wake up one day and, just be fucked because of genetics. I think that's a big part of like repression as well. Like one day I literally woke up and I was fucked because I remembered all these things, these really extensive like trauma things that happened to me that I didn't even realize happened to me until that
Yep.
moment where I started remembering them. And that happens to a lot of people in older adulthood, unfortunately. They push everything away. Our brains just, exist to protect us and exist to keep us alive. And we push things away and we make them go away until our brain is ready to feel them. And sometimes that could be like me at 13 years old. And for other people at 53. It just really like depends on what happens. And then in that moment, you kind of have to adapt to life and figure it out, you know. I think that's a big fear of mine too, and maybe a big fear of a lot of people's. I haven't really
Not me
found.
at all until now. Um, no, but let me ask you a question. I'm sorry to cut you off. May I?
Yeah.
Having it had happened to you once, if if it does happen again, are you're at least able to go, ah, fuck, at least I know what's happening.
I mean, yeah, it happens to me pretty regularly now. Not regularly, but like every once in a while I'll have, because there's still parts of my memory bank that haven't been completely open. Pandora's box is like a jar.
Yeah,
Um
yeah.
and so like, right, exactly. And so there will be other things that I will like slowly remember, maybe I'll walk into a park and it'll have a specific smell and it'll hit me
Yeah.
in the face. One time actually last week I walked up these stairs to my home and I just smelled the same basement that I was in as a kid. And I was
Oh
like, oh,
wow.
this is weird. This is very weird. And then I had a memory come up later on. Um, and so, yeah, I just kind of try to roll with the punches as much as I can. But honestly, it never really gets that much easier. I mean, when I was 13, it was very difficult because of the fact I had no idea what was going on with me. I thought I was going into full-blown
Oh
psychosis.
shit, I can't
I,
imagine that, man.
yeah, no,
Mm-mm.
I really thought that I was playing a trick on myself or I was like in an active hallucination or something. I had no idea what
Mhm.
was going on at the time. But now that I understand that's what that is, that brings me a lot of peace and comfort and
That's
allows
kind of
me
what I was trying to
to
ask. Yeah.
experience a lot more grace with myself. However, the re-experiencing of the trauma is never easier, unfortunately. But the tools that I have make it last a lot shorter. Like the impacts of the memory coming back um aren't as impactful. I mean, in like initially they are, like when they hit me, it's always very, very painful and very, very difficult. But I am able to bounce depending on what's going on in my life, right? But I
Yep.
usually am able to bounce back a lot quicker than I used to be because I have tools now. Sometimes though, those tools go completely out the window and I'm 13 years old again, and I have
Yeah.
no idea what the fuck's going on until I
That
bring myself back.
that's huge. That's huge stuff. I'm really happy to hear you say. Uh, well, let me paraphrase though, make sure what I'm happy about. The intensity is the same. The duration is shorter.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. And I think it tells me, and I'm not, it's just one data point, but maybe our bodies have to feel what they have to feel, you know?
I'm a firm believer in that. You got to feel it to heal it.
And then maybe your body's just waiting. Maybe it's just come on to your brain. Come on, you're getting there. Come on. I got to get rid of some of this. Come on. You
Yep.
know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's exactly how it works. I mean, body keeps the score. Other, other brain-based observations and research says that, your body also holds on to trauma and your body needs to release it in the same way that your brain does. And
Yeah.
so bit by bit, that will start to happen. I mean, who's to say, like, I would love to see the research, like now that things are coming up about trauma and its impact on the body. I'd love to see the research, 10, 20 years down the line of how many of these health problems you know, are all over the world are related and rooted in, unaddressed trauma. And is there a control group where we can take people who we know have been through trauma and don't get help for it and do get help for it? Like, are there differences in those two groups, right? Like, are there differences between the people who get help and don't get help? And what the research shows is, the more that you go through therapy and the more that you move through these things and the more that you release the trauma and you move through it and you really, really like process it, the better your health outcomes are in the future. But I don't know, I haven't researched this because it kind of scares me too. But I don't know if there is like accompanying research of like, hey, these people who went to therapy and really healed their shit didn't have as many health impacts as the people who did it. Right? But
Yeah,
like who's to
yeah.
say whether or not they would have had those health impacts if they hadn't dealt with their trauma? Like it's hard to
Oh,
tell.
absolutely, I know. And sure. And um, well, your first question, I wonder if we can find a group of people who haven't had trauma. No, we can't do that.
No, who
But
have had trauma but just didn't deal with it.
yeah, and what's the word? Intuitively, I want to believe that that makes absolute sense, and that's the way the universe works. That if you take a kid, I don't, if they're 3 or 4, and have them start talking to somebody on whatever basis, so they get the words and they can understand how to formulate, to get out what they're feeling. Everybody experiences trauma, and it's subjective, and it's up to you to define it, and we all have to get over it. And I think that's where 99% of mental health issues come from. I
Yeah.
believe that 1,000,000%. And I believe that healing that, what you alluded to earlier, is we're going to see, oh shit, you know what? There's been a big decrease in deaths from this disease and incidences of this disease in these populations.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
I
think
think
it's,
too, like if you look at, I mean, it's difficult too because in the country that we live in, shitty food is cheaper than good food, unfortunately. And I think that a lot of us, myself included, I find comfort in food that's not necessarily the best for me. And I think that there are a lot of things too that play into trauma, not just, it being held inside your body and not talked about, right? Like we eat our comfort foods, right? We have our vices, right? We have our cigarettes, we have our alcohol, and things like that. So those things, are all big factors at play as well. And I would just be really, really wondering if there was such a society in which trauma was looked at and addressed from the core at the
yeah,
source
yep,
and what that looks like as like a community and a society of, how that would
same.
help people flourish. I would
Yeah,
really love to see it.
absolutely. I agree with you. Yeah, I think that's the key, is addressing trauma at the earliest age possible. And I do think that there's a societal component to it, meaning that you could take America and whatever, model you want to use, and it still may turn out that we're a bunch of assholes because of who we are. Where it may, maybe an Eastern um, uh, instead of a Western approach.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, take that one lady that we talked to. I completely forget her name, but I probably shouldn't say it on here anyways. Um, that she was a student and she came in and she was talking to us about how her postpartum was so bad here in
oh, right.
America because she didn't have that community.
Yep.
Whereas when women back in her country have children, it's the
Exactly.
whole family, it's the
Yep.
whole community. It's the
Yep.
mothers, the uncles, the aunts, the distant
Yep.
relatives, the family friends. They're all chipping in to help, right? And like
That's the first thing I thought of. Yeah.
you treat your parent as if you are still that child and you have
Right.
that kind of like respect level and everybody's working and helping to like raise this village. Like it takes a village. Like I am
Yep.
such a huge proponent in like community is so extremely important. And as a society here in America, we are so individualized, but there are just so many things that we cannot do by ourselves. It's just simple as that. You cannot heal relational trauma outside of a relationship. you can do as much as you can, but the most work you're going to do healing that relational trauma is inside of a relationship. You can
Yeah.
still heal it outside of a relationship, but it's going to be put to the test inside of that relationship to where you can really see if that healing has made a difference, you know?
And yes, and when we started talking about the this topic, I was thinking of my friend Shushu, who's from Niger, and those are two really interesting words to say together, Shushu and Niger. But mental illness is looked at completely differently, and at least in Niger, which is in Africa, specifically um, schizophrenia, which in our society, my society, Western society, Western culture, specifically in America, when a person with schizophrenia who's been diagnosed with schizophrenia is hearing voices to tell them something, it's almost always something evil. In Shushu's culture and in Central Africa, when a person who would have been diagnosed with schizophrenia here or has been there is hearing a voice, it's almost always telling them something positive.
That's
And
so
I
interesting.
believe 100% that's a cultural thing. And I think that we are cultural poison the way we treat ourselves and each other and our communities. And I think there are much better ways to do it. And I love your idea of a community committed to, let's stop this bullshit right now. You know
Yeah,
what?
just a trauma-informed community. And then you're gonna like, you know,
Holy
kind
shit,
of
man. You gave me goosebumps on that one. Trauma informed community. Well, yeah, you know what? We're going to individual businesses. Yeah, let's get bigger. Let's go to your neighborhood. Let's make it, whatever your community is. And I know community is not a physical thing anymore, but it can be. Whatever your community is, make it trauma informed. That that's fucking exciting to me.
Yeah, and not only trauma informed, but trauma responsive, right? I think that's an important piece too, because you can know all about the
No
trauma and
kidding.
you can do all
One
the
step at a
tools, but
time. Yeah.
yeah, you have to have those like tools and you have to be responsive to, I am a firm believer, and others may not agree with me when I say this, but behind every action is an unmet need. So looking at that unmet need, what is not being seen in this person here? If this person is, if this child specifically is super aggressive, what's behind the aggression? Like, where is that aggression coming from? This child is super fidgety. If they're hitting or they're biting, what are they trying to communicate? I've been seeing all these really, really cool TikToks of people like mothering their children in a very different way. And this one mom has two boys, and she was taking a video of like, to show that she was like playing with her son and like capturing him like laughing and throwing his head back, and it was really cute. But she also captured a moment where her other son was saying, I want attention. Like being able to vocalize, like, hey, I'm feeling
No
left
kidding.
out. I want
Like a little
attention.
kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Good.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, are you feeling left out? Do you want attention? And he's like, yeah. And it's like, okay, come over here. We'll all play together, and just like being able to vocalize that as a
Wouldn't it
child,
be
like
great? Yeah, that's
so
cool. And
important.
either she got really lucky or that's the community she created for that kid.
Yeah, of course. And like she shows all of her ways of like her gentle parenting and stuff. And like when her child bites her, she's like, no, no biting other people. If you need to bite, you need to tell me that you need to bite something and I'll give you something that you can bite, right? Because when they're teething, it hurts. And so the next time he almost did, he stopped himself from biting and he said, Mama, bite. And so she's like,
No
do you need
way.
something to bite? And he said, yeah, bite. And so she gave him something to bite and he bit on it.
That's
So
pretty
just
cool.
that positive redirection, like even that is being trauma informed, right? Even doing those simple things is in terms of like just listening and accommodating is being trauma informed.
But you know what? You understand that better than I do because I don't have this concept of having needs not go met, go unmet when I was like a little tiny child. Uh, and so I sorry, I thought of that in the same way I think of cheating in a relationship. And um, because the person that does the cheating is not the one that gets to define what cheating is. It's the other person. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Just
so
like, go ahead.
it's that uh so however you're communicating with that child has to be in a way that is acceptable to them.
Yeah, I always tell parents too when they talk to me about their child, like they say, I was a damn good mom. And I'm like, well, that's not up to you to decide.
Exact.
You're
Thank you. That's
you're
what I was
not
trying to say.
you're
Yeah.
not the one who gets to decide if you were a good mom or not. I'm sorry to say. Like, I'm sorry if anybody has kids and they're listening and they're, feeling a little activated by that statement, but it's truth.
Yeah.
You are not the person that gets to decide that. It's the person that you raise, right? It's the person that was, your child. They're the deciders of if you were a good parent or not.
Yeah.
Because it was from their perception they were receiving the parenting. You weren't receiving your own parenting. So you can't say if you were a good parent or not. That's
Yep.
up to the child to decide.
Yep. And along those lines, I abhor the phrase, when people say you did the best you could. I never did the fucking best I could. I don't think. You know what I mean? I didn't raise my child the best way I could. Not a bit. I wish that I had, but that would have been exhausting and not human. So
Yeah, and
I made
you
I
taking
made less selfish
accountability.
decisions than I could have made. How's that?
Yeah, and you saying I wish I could have done the best that I could, right? That's still taking accountability. And that's still, a lot more than most people can even say for their children,
Well, I
right? I
appreciate that.
think for they did the best they could with what they had, great, fantastic. Love the fact you said that, but you can do the best you could and it still not be enough. And you have to take accountability for the fact that even if you did the best in those moments, it still was not enough. Two,
Absolutely.
two things can be
Yeah.
true at once.
No doubt. Yeah. And thank God Almighty for real, that we don't have to be even particularly decent as parents to have a child grow up and go, you know what? I don't want any of that. Here's how things are going to go, and to be a really good person.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I mean, I think, look at how I turned out. Uh,
exactly. You were one of the people that popped into my head. Yeah, and
Not to
that's
say
a
that
good
my
thing.
parents were horrible or terrible or, what have you.
Oh,
It was just, I did a lot of the raising myself. Like, I did a lot of things myself and taught my things, taught myself a lot of things that I wasn't taught. And now here I am as an adult. And I think this is something that's not necessarily talked about very often, but I think that a lot of us are struggling, especially my generation, is because I feel so, so much compassion and sorrow for my parents' generation and generations that came before them because they had no space to feel. They couldn't, They were constantly living in survival mode. Mental health wasn't talked about, If you had a mental health issue, you were deemed crazy,
hang on one second. Your parents' generation is my generation. None of that's true to me. If I was upset about something, I could talk to somebody about it. You know what I mean?
hmm
Um, don't give your parents credit for something they didn't have.
Well, I'm just saying, like, okay, maybe not societally, but I'll just speak for my parents and their parents and the way that they viewed the world from
Yeah,
their
my
little from
parents' parents, no, that was there was no mental
yeah,
health.
right. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that correction because maybe it's just their little bubble that they were living in that, mental health wasn't talked about, it wasn't discussed, it was villainized, it was just belittled really, and it was
Yeah,
you had to work and you had to get your shit together and you had to do what you had to do.
and that's
And
how they were raised, and so they came by that also.
yeah,
And hopefully, they're the last generation in your family. They are.
yeah. And so like I just feel I do feel for them for that inability because I know my grandpa had a lot of mental health issues and a lot of trauma that really went unaddressed,
Yeah,
undiagnosed, and just completely swept under the rug. And because of that, I really do believe this, but I don't know this to be true, but he died very early from a heart attack.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I make everything about myself, and that's one of two things that I'm trying to work on: drama queen and make everything about myself. And so I was making your phrase about your parents' generation about myself. Um,
But I think that's helpful information for me though, to
and
know
it
that
may very
that's
well be that
the
that
truth for
yeah,
you.
that because that stuff is all bottled up, of course it fucking makes you die early. Don't You're fucking crazy if you don't think it does, right?
We're
Come
not
on.
going to use stigmatizing
Oh, I'm
language.
sorry. I'm the one. I do that a lot, at least once a week. Um, sorry. Yeah, I mean, of course it does. Everything that I hold on to that I can't get out, that I love that my body thinking, come on, you're making so much progress, and your body's thinking, once I get the brain to this point, then I can get rid of some more of this, and then it's going to go again, and those processes are going to get quicker, and this this gorging time of dumping time is going to get shorter and shorter and shorter. But I love the idea, and I hate it, that the intensity is the same. Meaning, when that trauma happens, I have got to, as a human, feel that.
Yeah.
And I've been working. You've been working very hard, and I'm starting to work very hard on doing, making that as quick as possible for my body.
Yeah. Because when that trauma is laid down, it is laid down both in memory and it is laid down both in feeling, right? And you can remember it, but not feel it, unfortunately. That's sometimes they're separate. Sometimes our body just has to separate them, right? And
Yeah.
that's just what our body does to survive. And
Oh yeah.
that's why when the intensity comes back, or when that feeling comes back, or the somatic re-experiencing comes back, it is just as intense as the time in which it was laid down. There are
Yeah.
so many things that have happened to me really recently that I have just very visceral, childlike reactions to. Like take last week, for example. There was, an argument I got very, very triggered by. I shut down and I literally, in my body, and thus my brain followed, felt like I was 13 years old again. And I was trapped in a house with my parents who were fighting, and I had nothing, I could literally do nothing about it. And then Evan, he calls me right at the perfect time, right? And he goes, "You can leave. Like, if you're not going to put your foot down, I'm going to put your foot down for you." Right? And so in my brain, I was like, I can do that. And you know me, like the first reaction I had after that situation happened, which I'm not a touchy-feely person at all, you know that. My first reaction after that was, I need a fucking hug.
Oh wow.
That's how you know the situation was
Holy crap,
like
man.
like very dysregulating for me. I was like,
Yeah.
I was looking around like, who can I hug at the, like, who can provide me some comfort at this point, because I feel unsafe, right?
Yeah.
And
You
so
know,
like,
hey, let me ask you this right quick. Because there's several things that you said about Evan to me lately that have there's data points for someone who's been paying really close fucking attention and who really cares about you. And those
yeah.
are two really nice things. But it's taken him time to be able to
Mm-hmm.
send you a message like that. But
Yeah.
oh my God, being that kind of truth teller in your life and knowing you well enough to do that, though, if you can let yourself breathe and go, wow, that feels good to have that on my side, you know?
Yeah, but naturally I'm in a very avoidant person. So having that type of closeness and having somebody, provide me with that kindness and that support and that love, terrifying. So
Oh,
scary.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I just completely
Yeah.
shut down and I'm like, what do I do with all this? Do I even
Yeah.
deserve it?
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
that can
Don't
bring
get
us
into
to
that
our
conversation with yourself.
right. I think that can bring us to our question of the day,
Oh,
which was, remind me.
how important is it to have a truth teller in your recovery?
Oh, extremely.
Define truth teller if you don't mind.
Well, for me, I would say a truth teller is somebody who doesn't bullshit you
Okay.
and who will tell you hard things even when it's hard to hear,
Okay.
and provide you with, like you said, data points that you may not even be realizing,
Okay.
or,
I like that.
holding you accountable,
All right.
those kinds of things. I think that's what I feel like a truth teller would be. What about you?
Same, but I want to make sure we define the parameters before we answer the question. So I had this conversation with Melissa, and I've told her this. I think I probably told her this the night I met her. You don't have to answer any question I ever ask you. You don't ever have to say anything to me. But if you open your mouth and words come in my direction or to my ears, they better be the goddamn truth, 100%. And I say that to anybody that I'm in a close relationship with, right? So when we started talking about this part of it, uh, I had to ask, what do you think of? Because it's not like, uh, you're a mom, you know, looking for things to point out to me. I need someone who's comfortable saying, you know what, you shouldn't do that, or you know what, you should have done this, and or just things like that. But they're things that I need to know that I would not be able to pick up on my own. Like the antidepressant thing, I'm tongue in cheek, but it would have been nice if somebody, maybe you did, had said to me, hey, get some medical help for this, shit you're going through. Or if I do something that I just shouldn't do, and I do a lot of that shit, and examples are escaping me at the moment. You might have nine. I need someone to go. I'm just gonna say, like Ash, to go, hey, Billiam, you can't do that.
Hey, if you bring me the information, I always tell you how I feel about it straight up. But if you do the thing before I'm able to give you my opinion, that's on you, man.
Well, I skipped over you, and I'm sorry I shouldn't have done that. Because you are my biggest truth teller. I think I trust you to the same thing, and I have not said this to you. I didn't think I had to. I know her when I said it, but I know if you open your mouth and words come out, they're going to be the truth to me.
I don't think I'm capable, and that's the thing too, is like, maybe this is a red flag, but like, I don't think I'm capable of telling a lie. Like, for some reason, and nobody utilizes this to your advantage if you know me. Fuck off. Uh, because I just have like a really big like morality thing, and like I know that like I I just feel like it'll come back around. Like, and
Mhm.
I'm such a anxious person. I don't have that ability to keep up with all that shit. I'm
Oh,
sorry,
that
I don't.
yeah,
Like, that's
yeah.
half the reason why I just like, and I have a problem. And here's another thing too. I don't know if it's a problem, but I have this thing where like I have to tell my opinion. Like if somebody says something and I like disagree with it, or I need to give it pushback, or like I'm like, you probably shouldn't do that. I feel like I have a moral obligation to share that with
I
somebody.
like that.
They may not want it,
Yeah,
and that's fair, but like it's like a little it's like a little poking at my
yeah.
forehead. Like, you gotta say it, you gotta say it, you gotta say it, you gotta say it. And I'm like, shush, they might not want to hear it. But sometimes that's just how my brain works, and sometimes I'm not able to fight it off. And I just have to say the thing. And it kind of makes me like a chronically negative person sometimes, but like it's just like a little thing I have. I don't know. I don't know what that would be called, but it's something I experience and it's quite annoying.
Um, my behavior, all my personality, it's the one I was born with. It's incredibly hard to change personality. So the things that I do, the things I react to, the way I react are to me intuitive, and everybody should or does react that way. So when I started realizing that everybody does not indeed act or react the way I do, it blew my mind, but it also opened my mind, thank God. So I started trying to look at everything. And so while it's okay for you, and I like that you have this moral obligation to say a dissenting opinion, I also think that it's okay, almost imperative, that you respect the person who said it's right to say, I don't want to hear it.
Oh yeah, and I absolutely do. It's just very hard for me sometimes to not share my opinion, even when it's not asked for. Normally I'll bite my tongue, right? But or I'll say, "Do you want my opinion?" Which
Yeah,
you've heard me say that a lot.
yeah,
You want to hear my
yeah,
thoughts?
yeah,
And if they say no, then I'm like, okay. So I just have to like type it or like get it out of my brain or something. Like I gotta move it through, move it past. But I don't
yeah,
know. It's just like a weird thing. So let me ask you this:
yeah.
if you are of the opinion that everybody needs to be completely honest with you, or are you completely honest with everybody else as a result?
Hell no,
You do the
no,
thing that you expect from other people.
no, not at all. But that's part of me. No, I mean, seriously, that's part of me being human. And I learned that a long time ago. And so it doesn't make sense. There are, data is skewed, but I can't. I just can't live up to what I ask people to do. Now they don't have to live up to it either. That's what forgiveness is about. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? We all fuck stuff up. My problem is taking and you and I were we kind of I think we were at the same time. Feedback is feedback. When people give you feedback, it's just feedback. It's a noun. Um, and so I'm a lot more
Oh, that was
concerned.
Dr. Pepper Day.
It was, yeah, yep. I'm a lot more concerned with my reaction to feedback. And so through this process of Melissa and I having this, am I a truth teller? Or would you be a truth teller? To me, I kind of was able to jump the conversation a little bit, and went to, hey, it's okay to start a truth telling, comment with, don't be a dickhead. But because that would be my concern if I were trying to tell myself something, he's going to be an asshole.
Yeah.
Well, I'm giving you permission. I'm asking you to tell me. So if that's how you want to preface one of these things, that's okay. Because it will tell me this is what you asked for. Be nice.
Yeah.
But
I'll
I
keep that
think
one in mind.
when you're fine with me. I mean, you literally you told me some pretty direct stuff, and that's okay. And
but
that's
I always try to approach it in like I'm telling you this because it will help you type of way.
Absolutely, or help people. Help you navigate relationships better. Whatever, help us deal with you better. I told Melissa this morning, maybe when I wake up and get consciousness every morning, if there's like a little stitch in the side of the world, everybody's like, oh, he's awake. So what prompted me to say that?
I don't know.
What was the last thing you said? My mind is all over the place.
I said that I tried to tell.
You've been wonderful. You've been great about it, but you earned the right to be great. I probably trust. I don't know. I trust you a lot. There are things that I trust different people with. We started talking about that earlier. There are specific areas of life that I trust Melissa imperatively about. Unfortunately, our relationship is not not one of those. Straight up, it's just not. And that's okay.
And here's a fun plot twist.
Hmm.
I don't think that I trust anybody.
Well, some things you do.
Yes, I think I actually don't know if that's true. I think due to the nature of my upbringing and the trauma that I experienced, I don't. I mean.
Maybe it's you. Harrison, my kid, may be in the same situation, but I know he's always got someone he trusts. His goddamn self. I don't
even trust myself.
Okay.
And that's just we're gonna be fully transparent here today on this podcast, I guess.
Oh hell, man. I don't. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, I think that it's not for a lack of trying, and I don't necessarily put a lot of like self-blame or shame on myself for feeling those things, right? Self-trust is taught. I was taught the opposite, during my developmental years. I was taught not to trust my own inner voice, not to trust what was wrong with me. I mean, half the time I wasn't feeling good, nobody believed me.
Oh yeah.
Those kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I was constantly taught that my inner voice and what I knew to be true for myself was wrong.
Yeah.
Every opinion I had, everything that I felt, even the foods that I liked, like none of that really mattered to anybody around me, right? It was like I was shouting into an empty room, but it was full.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's hard to build that self-trust when you don't have experiences that foster that self-trust, which is why I am very grateful for my job, because it has taught me that there are a lot of things that I can trust myself with, which is really, really cool. But I think too that kind of dynamic in and of myself kind of bleeds over into my relationships, right? Because if I'm not
absolutely
curating any self-trust in myself, then I can't trust myself to trust other people.
Mm-hmm.
So then that just curates a whole long line of I'm just distrusting and, always thinking people are out to get me.
Huh. You've stumped me on this one.
But I think too, like when we're talking about truth tellers, that is a difficult question for me because of that trust thing, right? Because like you have to trust people in order to believe that they're telling you the truth. And in my inner monologue and in my inner dialogue, I don't trust that anybody's telling me the truth. I trust that everybody's working in their own interest.
Okay, me too. And I disagree completely. Maybe I'm not saying what I'm defining as a truth teller. What I'm looking for is someone who's telling me when I'm doing things that are wrong that I don't know are wrong, whether they're socially wrong or physically wrong, not in relationship, but I'm hammering the wrong way, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, uh, that's what I'm talking about. So I don't have to trust them at all. It could be somebody that pulls up next to me at a traffic light and goes, dude, why the fuck are you sitting there without your shirt on and driving your car? Then I'll go, oh, that's not a thing. Okay. Do you know what I mean? So I don't have to trust these people at all. I just want someone to look at me inside my box and tell me what they see.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And I'm trying to think of if I have anybody in my life that, like, if they were to say those things to me, if I would be comfortably receptive to them, because I have a tendency to be extremely defensive
Mm-hmm.
when people are telling me things are wrong, because I've been told my whole entire life that everything
Sure. Yeah.
that I've ever been doing is wrong.
Yeah.
So when I feel like I'm doing things right and I'm being told that they're wrong or they're not correct, I get really defensive. But I think that you are one of the people that I have that type of relationship with, where you can tell me those things and I will be receptive to them, because we have that mutual trust within each other, which I do think that exists. That, and maybe it's like also like a layer of safety, that like if you tell me that I'm doing something wrong and I disagree with you that that's wrong, like we can have that back and forth. Like
Mm-hmm.
we can have that like bitch fest back and forth. Like we can be
Mm-hmm.
assholes to each other and
Mm-hmm.
know that we're going to come out on the other side and things are going to be
Mm-hmm.
fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's important to me, because I do get like aggy. Like I do get irritated when people try to tell me about myself, and I get irritated when people tell me I'm doing something wrong or I should be doing something different, right? Because I'm such a perfectionist.
Yep.
And I've always had to be right, right? If I
Yep.
wasn't right, it was the difference between life or death in my brain,
Mm-hmm.
my nervous system. And
Yeah.
so I do become really reactive when people try to tell me about myself or tell me if I'm wrong. So I think that, and that's a great thing that I have with Evan too, is like he's another one of those people that, I've developed such a close relationship with, that he can tell me those things too. And we may get irritated with each other and it may end up in a fight, but like at the end of the day, like we're going to be good. We're going to come back together and we're going to squash it when both of our emotions are less heated.
Yeah. Here's two things that I think about that might make it a little more understandable. God damn, I forgot what they were. Shit, man, I'm so sorry. Um, it may come back, but they're just little things that someone's able to say. For example, whatever. Um, but yeah, for you and I though, I appreciate what you said, and the best I got for real, is it's just selfish. Is there's not much you could say to me that get me not to want to do this with you on Fridays. You are, you know, my friend Gina told me when I was at her house the one time, uh, that her anger kept her from taking the trigger lock off of her 9mm gun, putting the barrel in her mouth, and blowing her brains all over the wall. And I told her, and I'm telling you, and I told Melissa, and I told Katie, that it's not my anger that's kept me from killing myself for the last 6 months. It's my friends. And so for the part that you play in that, and your part's really huge, and I don't want you to carry that like a weight, because you don't owe it to me. It just is. And this is a big part of that. And so's, my stupid Thursday thing I have to do. But that's the kind of truth that I have to have, is somebody saying, hey, as simple as to do the synthesis question in. Hey, you know what? I noticed when you're not doing your podcast on Friday, you're not the same on Monday. And I was like, oh, fuck off. Hang on. What do you mean? And that led to, you know what? Okay, last Thursday, I didn't have therapy. And that led to me not showing up on Friday, didn't it? Um, and so I appreciate that, from him. He doesn't know me that well, doesn't know me anything. But that's the truth teller, and I needed that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of
So it's
course.
not Melissa's or your responsibility, but
But
it's
it's our
appreciated.
privilege.
And I really like the fact that you went the same way I did, which was, hey, I'm going to be defensive. So, William, this is one thing I'm very proud of is that I realize now, no shit, that's a black helicopter. It's Wright Patterson Air Force Base right behind us. What I have been able to say is I'm not happy with where I am in life in a lot of respects. There's no goddamn reason for me to expect anything to be different if I keep doing the same things I've done. Why don't I take a little chance and ask some people who know me what they see?
Yeah.
And then why don't I define and write down what I want my life to look like instead of just trying to fucking slide into it, accidentally and wake up and go, oh, this is perfect. That doesn't ever happen. It's not how you build a house. It's not how you
And
build
there
a
is
relationship.
so many rewarding things about that statement that you just said. Building the life that you want for yourself instead of just sliding into it. So that piece by piece by piece, as you are building this life up for yourself, you're able to look back and say, I did that shit. You're able
Yeah.
to look at where you are and all the progress that you've made and say, I did that shit. That is the one thing that keeps me going. And I think, that really keeps me here. And, not going down that really depressive rabbit hole is all of the progress that I've made to get me to the point where I am now. I'm not going to waste that shit because I got here tooth and nail. Thanks to all of the people in my life too, by the way. And thanks to just the sheer willpower that I had as well, and all the people behind me supporting me, cheering me on, to just say that, like, I'm not gonna fucking do this anymore. Like, I'm not gonna live my life like this anymore. I'm not gonna be this person anymore. I'm not going to continue these patterns. I'm not gonna be like my mom. I'm not gonna be like my dad. I'm gonna be my own person, and I'm gonna live my fucking life, and I'm gonna live my truth because that's what I deserve,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Like, we
Yep.
all as human beings, and I think this is such an important statement to say because when I heard it, it really changed the trajectory of things for me, is like, we're human, right? We deserve good things just because we're alive. We don't need to deserve or earn good things,
No,
right?
you're not. No, exactly. Thank you for real. Yeah, at 29, man, I fucking wish I'd realized that. You're not going to earn anything. You're not going to earn the right treatment from the person you love or the career that you don't. That's not what we do. You know what runs this planet? And there's more of it in the building we work in than any other place in the world I've been. It's grace. It's the fact that, oh, goddamn, you know what I can do today? I can give more than I get today. So I'm going to do that because there's lots of days I can't. And thank y'all very much for picking it up for me.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to get to is what are those days and what are those things that occur that I can't do it so that I can get those out of my life to the biggest degree I can. And if I could start over again as a kid, this is what I would want to learn.
Yeah.
I want to learn who I am. I will, and then I want to go from there.
Yeah.
What do I want to get to? I don't need to know how to memorize who invented what, or I don't need that.
Well, I think that's the beauty of life. It's just a constant journey of self-discovery. It's a constant because we're always ever flowing and ever changing. And it's hard when from my perspective, I low-key have like a personality disorder because I never really developed one. And so discovering who that is for the very first time, right? What
Yeah,
when I was a kid did I love and enjoy so much that that was never harnessed, right? How can I harness
yeah,
that now? Like when
yeah.
I see people dancing, right? Like I'll get TikToks or videos on my feed of like people dancing, I'll just start crying because
No,
it's like that could have been me had somebody noticed my talent or like noticed my passion. I don't know necessarily talent, but if someone noticed my talent and was able to like harness that, right? Like, so whenever I
my
can, I dance.
my phone's gonna die. I love that. Someone noticed your talent. Someone noticed your talent for talking, for communicating, and for having an opinion that a lot of people might value, and that's me. And so that's why we do this. Because you're creating content, and shit, man, I wish that I could see all the content you end up creating. Um, my phone's about to die for real. I can't plug it in because I'm an idiot. How long? What time is it?
It's 4:18, which is fine because I need to go anyways. So this is a beautiful, beautiful way to end it. Of life is just an everlasting journey of creating who you are and finding what you love and developing your personality and we deserve to be here just because we are human, and we deserve to have great, wonderful experiences just because we are human and just because we are alive. So go get that ice cream sundae. Fuck it. That's
Tell
how
Evan
I
hi.
feel. I will.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. This was a great episode.
Yeah, it was fun.